Silent Majority is a mysterious marionette that only the host of the ability can see and the person it's attached to. However, the person who is targeted by the marionette is not the intended target for death, but rather a useful distraction to throw people off as to who will actually die. Somewhere near the doll's location, 4 white snakes, with their bodies covered in mouse, remain concealed until the distraction has been made. Once the snakes latch onto their actual target, they can suck the blood out of the victim's body in just 44 seconds, or 11 seconds if all 4 are working in unison. If it so happens that Silent Majority is unsuccessful in killing its target, it is forcibly cancelled, and the curse will then be turned upon its user. Now that we've established what Silent Majority is and how it operates, let's take a look at all the clues from the internal discussions and circumstantial evidence to determine who is the most likely suspect. Of course, for the purposes of this theory, we need to assume that Silent Majority is in room 1014, or Prince Woble's room. Now, before we determine the list of most likely suspects, let's reduce the number by eliminating people who are most likely not Silent Majority.
Hey, are you looking for some Berserk merch? Check out the link in description now. They offer free worldwide shipping over $49.90. Amazing prices and all 30% off. Use the link in my description.
First one up, Kurapika. He's never displayed this ability before, and it seems unlikely for him to start killing the other prince's bodyguards when he wants to create a stalemate situation in the succession contest. Rousing suspicions and creating conflict goes against what he's going for, so he's definitely not the most likely suspect, so he's out. Next up we got Shimano. Now she was ruled out by Kurapika's dowsing chain. Now Bill is an end user, but he's not the suspect because he was also ruled out by Kurapika's dowsing chain as well. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, is it Prince Wobble? I mean, we don't know what his Nen beast is, so it's definitely possible. But according to Kurapika's own statements, he rules this out by stating it's a different type of Nen beast. And it's also ruled out by Baba Manya as well, especially after the incident with Berenjin. Now next up we got Queen Oito. Now she became grieved by the death of Momozi and doesn't seem to have any desire of participating in the succession contest. In fact, if she can make a deal with one of the other princes, she'll likely do that so that she doesn't have to kill anyone. She just wants to escape with herself and Prince Wobble unscathed and hopefully keep her hands clean in the process. Plus, if she were Silent Majority, she would have had to conceal her Nen abilities from Kurapika to have killed Woody on day 1 of the voyage. Next up, we got Baba Manya and Furikov. Now, they're both bodyguards for Prince Benjamin. Now, according to their internal monologues, it seems to suggest that they are not Silent Majority. We just haven't really seen any evidence that would seem to point to that. Then we have Berenjin, who's ruled out because he died. Muhan, who also died, so he's not Silent Majority. Next up, we got Sakata, who is currently working with Prince Wobble as a bodyguard, but he originally came from Prince Zhang Lei. Now, he's been quick to pull the trigger on the white snakes of Silent Majority. And if he were the user of Silent Majority, why would he kill his own white snakes? It doesn't make any sense. And per Silent Majority's own requirements, if they are not met, if Silent Majority doesn't kill someone, then the effects go back onto the user. It would kill them instead. So it makes no sense for Sakata to kill the snakes if he were Silent Majority, because that would result in his own death. So it just doesn't make sense. Also, he didn't seem to know Nen before Kurapika's training session, so it doesn't add up for him. Next up, we got Hashido, also a bodyguard from Prince Wobble, previously from Zhang Lei. He seemed rather surprised by Bill's fake Nen ability when he controlled the cockroach, and doesn't seem like he was aware of Nen prior to this. Then we got Labari. Now, Labari was the first person that we saw that was targeted by Silent Majority, and of course, in the speech dialogue for Silent Majority, the only 2 people that could see the doll were the person controlling it, and at that moment, Labari. So obviously she's not the user. Then we got Danjin, and along with Muhan, he is one of Prince Serednik's bodyguards, and it's unlikely that he would have killed one of his own comrades. I mean, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. In addition, based on his discussion with Serednik in chapter 376, it seems unlikely that he's the user for Silent Majority. Next up, we got Yuharai and Sajor. Now, both of them were giving off an aura when they were in the training session, and both of them were unaware of this as well. Given the fact that they were unaware of this and they didn't seem to know Nen prior to this, means it's rather unlikely that they're the culprits at this point in the story. And given the fact that Berenjin died in the previous chapter, it all but clears their names. Now, we eliminated a lot of the people who weren't silent majority. Before we go any further and start listing the people who might be silent majority, I think it would be instructive to sort of get a little more detail about silent majority's name. Now, silent majority is also called They Were 11, which is a reference to a 70s manga by the same name. Essentially, in the manga, 10 space cadets are placed into a spaceship. But once they arrive, there's an 11th, and no one can seem to remember who was part of the original lineup. So essentially you got 10 people who were supposed to be there, and one person who wasn't. With this in mind, it's possible that the user for silent majority is someone who was not given direct orders to attend the lessons. Using this assumption, we can reduce the candidates to Ireludia, Labri, Yuri, Musasho, and Satobi. Now, Ireludia and Radialis are both mates for Fugetsu, and both seem generally confused as to why they're attending the lectures in the first place, as opposed to the bodyguards. So, it's possible that they're the users, but it doesn't really seem likely. Next up, we got Yuri. Now, we already ruled out Labri as a suspect, but what about Yuri, who's also a maid for Prince Kacho? One thing that we need to keep in mind that bears a great deal of importance is that Queen Saiko is the mother of Prince Fugetsu and Prince Kacho, both of whom decided to send maids instead of bodyguards to the Nen training. With Fugetsu and Kacho unable to speak to each other due to their separation for the succession contest, it's likely that Saiko is behind these 4 selections. So the question then becomes, what do we know of Queen Saiko? If she expected the training sessions to be a site for potential assassinations, it would make sense to send maids instead of bodyguards, since the loss of the former would be less consequential. Now, after the incident with Berenjen happened, an investigator working for Cleopatra questioned her about the incident, and Queen Saiko outright refused to answer any questions, demonstrating a high level of defiance. So it is possible that Saiko knew of Yuri's talents and gave her strict orders to eliminate the prince's other bodyguards. Now, for Yuri herself, a couple of things to note. She is a female, just like the marionette doll, and looks to be of a similar height and has a similar hairstyle. However, some people have noted that the speech pattern for silent majority indicates that it's a male. I can't really speak to this since I'm not Japanese, so I don't really know. But I will say this, while others have verified this same information, it is still possible for a woman to talk in this fashion as well. Now, when Labri sees the doll, Yuri is right next to her, stating that she can't see anything. But it does kind of seem like her questioning more or less provokes Labri to scream out that some weird woman is standing over there, which provides the perfect distraction for the snakes to attack. It's kind of like one of those weird psychological tricks. If you're walking down a street with someone and you start looking over your shoulder, the person with you is going to start doing that too. Especially if you don't say anything and you just constantly do it and you have this really sort of scared look on your face. They're going to start getting scared just because they're sensing your fear and they're going to play along into that. So it is possible that Yuri was sort of being like, hey, what are you seeing? What is that? What is over there? And that was getting Labri more intense and more scared and more anxious about the situation. In addition, when Silent Majority states, the only 2 people able to see Silent Majority's Sashiki doll are me, the ability's user, and Lovely, the person that's being possessed. Now, Labri is also called Lovely, so they're the same person. But the critical detail here is that the person that controls Silent Majority called Labri by her first name. Not only did she know this, but she probably already knew that Labri didn't possess any Nen, and would be an easy target to manipulate for the ability's purposes. Well, who would know all this information? If the user was Yuri, she would have access to all of this. We would assume that she would know Labri intimately. And lastly, while the other bodyguards have sought alliances with Karapka and an exchange of information, none of the maids from Queen Saiko seem interested in working with Prince Wobble and his team. Why is this? Is it possible they're more interested in eliminating the other bodyguards rather than working with them? Who knows? Next up, we got Satobi. He's the captain of Queen Duazo's Royal Guard and is assigned to Prince Lazarus. Now, he seems open to negotiations, but is ultimately worried about the training sessions. Particularly, he thinks they're going to be used for nefarious purposes. And after Muhan's death, Satobi becomes more suspicious of Karapka and even states the whole training session was a lie. To me, he seems generally concerned about his life and is unlikely to be controlling Silent Majority. Then we got Mayor, the captain of the guards of Prince Tubepa. Now, I ruled him out for one simple reason, and that's due to this statement right here. I want his, Kurapka's, brains. I must have him as our ally, even if it means bringing the prince along with him. Use these 2 weeks to persuade him stealthily. Given this, it really doesn't make any sense for Mayor to risk a potential partnership with Kurapka by killing off participants in the Nen training class, so it just doesn't make any sense. Then we got Longi. He's also one of Tubepa's bodyguards and seems unlikely for the same rationale that I laid out for Mayor. Then we got Teftari. He's a royal bodyguard for Prince Zhang-Lei, but it doesn't really seem likely that he knew about Nen prior to the training, and he seemed generally in a state of awe afterwards when he was able to see Zhang-Lei's guardian beast for the first time. And then second to last, we got Musasho. He's the captain of Queen Swinko's royal guard. Now, if you remember, Tufty, the man who killed Prince Momozee, was a spy for Queen Swinko and a Nen user. So the likelihood that she's utilizing Musasho, another potential Nen user, to eliminate the other prince's bodyguards is highly likely. In addition, when he prepares to engage in the Nen training session, he states, "This is a mission of the utmost importance. I cannot leave it to anyone else to do." Now, what sort of mission does this entail? A possible assassination or multiple assassinations? And if you guys remember, after the death of Prince Sail, he stopped attending the training sessions, and as a result, the deaths stopped as well. And if the doll is using a voice that indicates a male user, then this would make all the more sense. And then finally, we got Bellaraint. He's a pro hunter, so he obviously knows how to use Nen, and is one of Prince Meruem's bodyguards. Being that he's a male and a Nen user, it's certainly possible for him to be the culprit, especially since he defended Kurapka and became a supporter for continuing the Nen sessions. However, if Bellaraint is Hisoka, which I strongly suspect, then the chances he's a Silent Majority user is 0%. So that's everyone, guys. If you guys saw any other information that I missed or neglected, tell me in the comments. Tell me who you think Silent Majority is. Here's my list right here in terms of the most likely suspects. Of course, this can always change with the new chapters, but based on everything that we've seen so far, this is how I would put my guesses. Of course, if you're not subscribed, please do that right now. I produce a lot of Hunter x Hunter content, Berserk, and manga timelines. And if you're not busy, go watch another one of my videos. But until next time, I'll catch you guys on the flip side.